Welcome back to Teresa's Dead. My name is Teresa and I'm very much alive. I have an awful garbage filthy mouth, so viewer discretion is advised. But if you're not into that or weird shit in general, this is definitely not the place for you. Feel free to exit the video here. No harm, no foul, but I'll remember our time fondly. Oh, hello, my little apple dumplings. So in my latest makeup bingo video, I asked y'all, hey, do you want to see this palette? Because I don't like it. Not that I don't like it, but I just felt like it's not going to be good. But I got an overwhelming response of like, yes, I want to see it. I need to know how good it is. I need to know how bad it is. And this is for y'all, okay? For the ones that said, no, I don't care. I'm sorry. You lost. So I'll catch you in the next video. So with that said, let's talk about this palette. The pastel eyeshadow palette retails for $65. Anything but ordinary. The pastel eyeshadow palette's unique color story offers buildable intensity. Okay. For everything from subtle to statement looks. Really? Go monochrome with the same pastel shade in different tones, or use a palette to add a pop of pastel to an otherwise neutral eye. The only limit is your imagination. Whatever you choose, all formulas in this palette blend seamlessly for long-lasting, effortless, pro-level looks. I'm sorry I couldn't muster that one down. It's a lot of heavy claims. Okay, all right, let's talk about it. So this retails for $65, and I think the best part about this palette is the packaging. The packaging, which by the way, I look like this matches. I know I purposely wore this shirt because I was like, I'm feeling like a pastel dream, but seriously, the packaging is the best part. It's adorable. Now this palette is in like the midi range, meaning for $65, it's real hit or miss. And that is one of the awful things about this particular size palette. Now with that said, when you do open her up, you get this lovely, lovely color story, as well as this really beautiful mirror. Now listen, I knew in my soul deep down that this palette was going to be garbage. Everything that came out about it just didn't look good. It looks chalky, it looks light, it looks like something the world doesn't need. But I will say, I was taken back when I first opened it up because it looks not great online, but then when I opened it up, I was like, yes, okay, I can get on board with this. The palette looks incredibly rich in pigment, and I know my studio lights are not doing it justice right now because as I'm looking in the monitor, it looks pretty light, but it actually looks like this can pack a punch. And honestly, I'm getting a boner just thinking about it. But then I applied it. Ooh, all right, let's break it down by formula. So in this palette, there are a few different formulas. We have 4 cream to powder, 4 creamy mattes, 5 duochromes, and 2 metallics. So let's start with the cream to powder first, which I'm gonna put them down here on the bottom of the screen. And that is Tulle, Bora, Bubble, and Zest. They are definitely on the powdery side. And it's funny because when you do tap off the excess and then you start applying it to the eye, it's still a mess. There is a good amount of fallout that goes onto the face. And the fallout is just not easy to clean. And then you have this weird pastel remnant. It's not cool. And I'm so disappointed because they look so pigmented, but they are fucking not. And listen, I'm not fucking stupid. I know pastels are meant to be light, but they also should have some pigment, right? And while some of these are buildable, some will never look like what it's supposed to look like in pan. Looking at you, Bora. And it's so heartbreaking because that looks like it's gonna be such a beautiful shade. The shade that's gonna provide all the dimension, and it doesn't come close. And what pisses me off about these particular shades is that when you start to layer them and then you start to kind of blend them into each other, 9 out of 10 times on me, they start to blend into nothing. So I found the best way to use this palette was treating it like a pressed pigment palette, meaning that I would just layer the color on and then I'd walk the fuck away. And by doing that, I had a better chance of the eyeshadows staying on my eye for upwards to 8 hours. The longevity was okay. I've definitely had other Natasha Denona palettes that just were far better quality-wise and longevity-wise, and this was kind of like, it was okay. It wasn't the worst, but it was just okay. Now, some of the shades were better than others, but the other shade that was like, kind of annoying was the shade Zest. This one is just genuinely yellow. It looks lime green in pan. It's not lime green, it's yellow. And it's so goddamn fucking powdery. And now it could totally be me. It could totally be the fact that I am a tub of marshmallow fluff. So if you do have a similar skin tone to me, you might have the same experience. But all hope is not lost. There are 2 shades that were pretty good and they didn't annoy me as much. And the first one is Tulle and the other one is Bubble. There's hope for these shades. I like the shade Bubble because you could technically make it a very pretty pastel purple color if you combine it with the shade Feather. And then Tulle is just a really pretty pastel pink. So I actually just wanted to check something out because I do have the Trichrome palette and there are two green shades in here. There's Ion and Vert. So I kind of want to do like a quick swatch on my hand. Now when I look at them next to each other, there is like a tinge of like lime to it, but on the eye again, it just looks yellow. If you're looking for a much more lime moment and you do have the Trichrome palette, the shade Ion I feel like is a much more like pastel-y green as opposed to the Zest shade in the pastel palette. I mean, I know it's a pastel, but like, I don't know, I just want it to be more lime green. I want it to look true and pan, and it doesn't look like that at all, and it really fucking irritates the shit out of me. I just want a lime green. Anyway, I'll shut up and we'll talk about the creamy mattes. Now, the creamy mattes in this palette are Brisk, Bellini, Airy, and Feather. Okay, these are fucking dry. They are so powdery. Again, they have a lot of fallout. The only thing about this formula that I feel is better than the cream to powder formula is that these blended better, and I feel like I was able to build up a stronger opacity with some of these shades, with the exception of the shade Feather. That one was really, really rough. It's very, very, very fucking light. It's really, really hard to show up. However, if I use this with the shade Bubble, again, it's a very, very pretty pastel purple color, so I'm not mad about it. I've at least found a use for that shade. Now, I primarily use these shades as crease shades, and while yes, I did have to do a fair amount of building up, I'm happy to say that the longevity of these shades are a little bit better than the cream to powder. And I feel like they did a much better job matching what it looks like in pan as opposed to the cream to powder that just looked way fucking off. And it's funny because usually I'm on board with Natasha's mattes, but these were just okay. Nothing memorable. I'm happy to say that they weren't patchy, they were just incredibly dry, and just the fallout was just intense, really, really intense for a Natasha Denona palette. Now, moving on to the duochromes, we have Illusion, Dainty, Adriatic, Starlit, and Duet. These are interesting. Let's start with Illusion. I had so much fucking hope for this shade, but it's so powdery, it's so weird, there's so much buildup on it. Now, it kind of looks very similar to the shade Cube that's from the ABH Subculture palette, if anyone has that in their makeup graveyard. But I love that palette. The reformulated one, not the original one. That was scary. And I was kind of like, ooh, yes, this is gonna be that. But unfortunately, I had a much better payoff with my Subculture palette that's at least like, I don't know, 2 to 3 years old than this palette, which says a lot. The problem with this one is it has this really weird white flakiness to it. So I applied the shadow with some glitter glue and it just looked like there was like spots of just white buildup. It was really fucking weird. I found the best way to use this shade is purely as an inner corner highlight. Inner corner highlight, it's fine. On the lid, not so much. So unfortunately, that is a boner killer shade. Dainty, on the other hand, fuck me up. That's a great shade. Now, there is some loose glitter attached to it, but I think I was so happy at this point to use that shade that I just didn't fucking care. Let Tinkerbell shit all over my face. It's fine. I'm finally getting some payoff in this palette. And it's interesting because while it did adhere nicely with some glitter glue, I found that pretty much most, if not all, the shimmers really work better with a finger than it did with a brush and glitter glue, which I feel like is not the case, not in my experience anyway. So that was kind of interesting. Now, the next shade is Adriatic, and honestly, it's supposed to be like a duochrome of like turquoise to a gold shift. I didn't see the gold shift, just looks like turquoise. It's pretty, I like it. I feel like a mermaid, but I don't see the gold shift. Starlit was great. It operated very much like Dainty. It's coral with a peach undertone. You can see the shift. It's sparkly, it's beautiful. The lilac to teal just looks really, really beautiful in the inner corner. It's actually what I have in my eyes today. This was the only look that I did not film today. And I'm kind of pissed at myself because this is the only look that I've actually really, really enjoyed. Out of the countless times I played with this palette, this is probably my favorite thing that I created. The shade not only looks really good on the lid, but it looks amazing in the inner corner as well. So overall, there was some fallout with these shades, and you know, there was a kind of a little weird buildup at times, especially because of how powdery they are. But beyond that, when used with other shades, they blended very beautifully with the rest of the palette, and they really gave like a nice like subtle pop of shimmer without being too much. So if you are somebody that doesn't want something super intense, like I feel like the shimmers are kind of where it's at in this palette. Now that said, there are 2 remaining shades in this palette, and they're technically from the Tropic palette, which I believe is one of the worst palettes this brand has ever put out. I didn't pick it up. Actually, that's not true. I picked up the mini palette, but technically the mini palette also fell on my floor and broke into a million trillion fucking pieces. So a moment of silence for that palette, please. Thank you. So anyway, if you have the Tropic palette, then technically you already have like 2 repeat shades. Anyway, we have Mint Frost and Limoncello. Mint Frost is a sparkly icy turquoise. This is a great shade. I had no issues with it whatsoever. It's light, it's sparkly, it's so pretty. Although I will say it can look a little oddly close to the Adriatic shade, so I kind of question whether you really needed both of them. They look too similar on the eye. But I prefer Mint Frost because it's a touch sparklier. Now the shade Limoncello is much, much drier compared to Mint Frost. And this is another shade that just had like buildup when applying on the lid. It was kind of chunky and just dry. But once I blended it out, it looked a lot smoother. It just took a little hand holding. And I did use glitter glue with both shades, and I didn't notice anything like out of the ordinary. Anytime I did use glitter glue with any of the metallics or the duochromes, I didn't get any weird texture, which is great. I just found that even with that kind of level of saturation, it didn't pop as much as it did with my finger. Anyway, so for $65, while there were things that annoyed me about this palette, it wasn't the worst palette that I've ever tried. I've definitely had worse palettes from this brand. Palettes that irritated the shit out of my eyes and made me cry for days. And while I'm very, very happy that I report no irritations, this is just okay. And it's a little better than what I thought it was gonna be, which was pure garbage. This is just okay. It's a shame because the color story is really, really cute, and it's like this really perfect little Easter moment. And while pastels are meant to be light, I was really hoping that it would look more true to pan, and it didn't. The formula is just a little bit too soft for my liking. It's really, really dry, so there's just a lot of fallout and just like unnecessary like powdery buildup. But I think what irritates me the most is that some things just like blend into nothing, and then you kind of have to ask yourself, what am I paying for? Now listen, I do have an appreciation for lighter makeup. Hell, I actually even like the fucking Urban Decay Cyber palette. I really like this palette. Urban Decay really just does some weird shit. But this was really fun to play with. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And while yes, this is on the lighter side, it still showed up. And I think because this is not like a super pastel moment, this feels much more wearable as compared to the pastel palette. Now, $65 ain't cheap. And unless you're rocking pastels every day, which if you are, God bless. But I think for most, this is going to be a companion palette. As a standalone palette, there are some moments that are really nice. But I often found myself looking at other palettes to complete the look. Now, all the looks I created today for this video, I didn't use any other palette except this one. And again, I just felt like I needed something to make it look better. This palette doesn't offer any dimension. And while yes, you can build up some of the shades, every look I created was always missing something. And I really attribute that to not having another palette to complete it. So for me, yes, I'm gonna use this palette. One, because I fucking paid for it. We don't waste shit in this house. But two, well, some shades were not great. There were some good, decent moments that I can see myself using more as accent shades. But again, $65, do you really fucking need this? No. However, if you're not into this brand, but you're looking for a nice pastel moment, I do want to throw out some recommendations. Number one, I always recommend Lethal Cosmetics. They are my child. And what I like about Lethal is that you can create your own color story. And for me, I feel like they make the best pastels. They're very, very pigmented and they're beautiful. And I love them. Now I do have a code with them. Mind you, I do not make any money off of it, but if you are interested, my code is garbage. You're welcome. The other palettes I would totally recommend is this one from Shroud Cosmetics. This palette's old because I had it when it was Strobe Cosmetics. This is the Creepy Cute palette. I love this palette. The quality is still really fucking good on this palette. One of my favorite pastel palettes. This one's so wonderful. Another really good pastel moment is from Laura Lee Los Angeles. The Candy Skies. Oh my god, this is so fucking cute. I love this palette. This is another one that's really, really good. It's solid quality and you get a lot of variety in here. And then if you're looking for something a little bit more rainbow, I recommend Violet Voss, the Sugar Crystals palette. This is fucking awesome too. So I'm gonna link those palettes down below. I believe they are all still technically available, so if you're interested in checking them out, feel free. If not, that's fine too. But if you still want to dip your makeup dick into this pastel palette, please do it when it's on sale, for the love of God. The Sephora sale is literally just right around the corner. Just wait till it's on sale. But yeah, this is not going to be a palette that I recommend during that sale because I just don't think you really need it. But if you want it, it's fucking there. Anywhoosies, now I want to hear from y'all. Let me know down below how you feel about it. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you have it yourself? What are your thoughts? Let me know because I love hearing from you. And with that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it as always. Feel free to like, comment, hit that subscribe button. It's free, and hit that bell icon for notification of all my future posts. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon. To all my beautiful, wonderful Patreon buddies, puppies, thank you so much for keeping this delicious, disgusting, filthy, trashy, really filthy, really gross, really nasty, really disgusting, really garbage boat afloat. I couldn't do without you, and I love your adorable little delicious faces. If you want to know what's currently on my face, along with everything that I mentioned in today's video, everything will be listed in the description box below. And I'll see you little cupcakes later. Bye!